Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. We're talking about the Z50II, and this is the entire review. Now, I highly recommend that you look at the timeline across the bottom of YouTube and pick the sections that you are interested in. Just a heads up, these are all the videos you've already seen on YouTube, just put in one spot, so it's kind of a end-all be-all whole review of the camera itself. Now, this video will be taking place over a couple months for the different segments, so hopefully we get some warmer weather by the end of this. And just a heads up, I do have hats available on the YouTube store with little pop-ups and links down below with t-shirts, hoodies, other different types of hats. I have the fitted snapback trucker hat and the fitted regular baseball cap hat. I also have framed pictures that ship directly to your house in wooden frames, so that's really cool. And if you buy any of those framed prints and you hang them on your wall, please leave a review on the Facebook page. I'll put a link for it down below in the description as well. So with that being said, let's jump into the video. We're going through the Z52 menu system. We're going to start at the top, go all the way through. We're going to do the I menu and then my custom menu at the bottom. And we're going to talk about the basic setup for it, how I set it up. And one of the greatest things about the Z52 is it has a very, very similar menu system to even the Z9. So I can have my Z9 and Z50 set up pretty much identical, except the Z50 is missing a couple of function buttons, but you still have plenty to do what you want it to do. So we're going to go through and I'm going to show you recordings of the electronic viewfinder for all the different settings I use. I do recommend using the YouTube timeline across the bottom so you can check for the video settings, photo settings, custom button settings, all that good stuff. And this is just the beginning of the Z52 review series. We're going to go through a comparison video between the Z50 Generation 1 and 2, the spec comparisons, how the EVF responds with the Xpeed 7 CPU versus the Xpeed 6 in the previous generation. And we're going to do real-world testing and examples from photo, video, the handling. We're going to do a lot of deep dive in this, so expect a couple episodes out of this. And then once I'm done with everything, I will put it all in one video, and you can watch the entire thing in one long-form video format. I'm pretty excited about the Z52 because I've been wanting something to pair with the Z9 that does 4K N-Log internal, so pretty excited. So let's jump into the menus and see what we got. Okay, so here we have the beginnings of looking at the I menu and how I have that set up. Now you can easily go into the menu and set this how you want, but this is how mine is, so your mileage may vary. So across the top we have metering, we have white balance. I have that set to Kelvin so that we can be sure that we are in a daylight white balance without letting the camera do it. It's not a huge deal, but that's just my personal preference on it. And we have auto area subject mode detection type, so you can pick birds, people, planes, whatever. And your focus mode, it's always an autofocus continuous for myself. It says MF in this though because there's no lens attached whenever I'm recording the menu. Focus shift shooting for macro stuff, silent shutter, flash, don't really use that, and custom controls, so you can go in there and move around your custom controls without digging too deep into the menus to find that option. Camera usually lives in VR Sport. And on the bottom left here we have monitor viewfinder brightness, and I always have it pumped all the way up to 5. That way you can take full advantage of the EVF being at 1000 nits brightness, and it will be plenty bright enough to use sunglasses or transition lenses. And we'll just show my menu at the very bottom. The menu options, you can just add things to this that you want. I usually just have the format memory card here. And also on the other cameras you can have an option to show your battery percentage and your battery information, but on the Z52 you don't get that option. You only have the 3 bars in the viewfinder telling you what your battery is at, and that's kind of annoying. Not a big fan of that. So here we are at the very top of the menu system here in the photo shooting menu, and we'll just go right down the list through all the menus, and I will point out all the major things that I changed that I feel really help to use the camera. But of course you can change how you think it fits you once you're used to using the camera. This is just a good starting place, I believe, for a lot of people. So you want to set the camera to RAW because we're going to be shooting in RAW photos, and for RAW recording I use high efficiency star. Some people say there is a difference between high efficiency star and lossless compression. I don't shoot that extreme of situations to where it really comes into play. And high efficiency star lets you have more on your card as well. And if you're only using like a V30 or V60 SD card, you can get a little bit better buffer rate out of the camera. Leave it all the same. Picture control is standard, and manage picture control. This is where you can download and install the picture profiles from the Nikon app, but not really a thing for me, so I don't really mess with it. Color space is sRGB. I do not use active delighting or anything like that. And if you ever come across anything that you don't understand what it's talking about or suggesting, in the top right of the menu there will be a question mark, and since it's touchscreen, you just tap the question mark and it will bring up an explanation of what you're looking at. Long exposure noise reduction I always turn on because I like doing long exposure photos, and always leave high ISO noise reduction at normal because you can just do that in post when you edit in your editing program. You want to have diffraction, compensation, and auto distortion on so that it will use the in-camera profiles to remove like pin cushion and diffraction from any lens that's attached and the camera recognizes. We're not really going to worry about metering because that's on our My Eye menu, and the flash I'm not going to worry about. The release mode I'm not going to worry about because there's a dedicated button on the back of the camera for it, and all the other options like AF area mode and subject detection and whatnot is in our eye menu as well. That's pretty much it for the photo shooting menu, so now we're going to move on to the video menu. So here you can select what type of video file type you want to shoot. I usually just live in 265 10-bit N-Log, and it's in 4K 30. And it's pretty important here to use your white balance and Kelvin. And again, make sure vignetting control, diffraction, auto distortion, all that is on. Metering is going to be matrix for the most part, so it takes into account everything around you when you're doing video, or the subject, everything that's around the subject. In electronic VR, I leave it off. It gives too much of a jittery composition. If you try to play it back, it's just not that great. Microphone sensitivity, I leave that on manual, and I usually set it to 15. And then a frequency response, I always change it to voice because usually it's me in front of the camera talking, so that works for what I do. And I do not use wind reduction because of the dead cat that I use on my shotgun microphone. Doesn't let any wind in anyway, so not really needed. So here we are in the custom settings menu. This gets pretty in-depth, and as you can see, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G all the way down. And inside each sub-menu, it would be like A1, A2, A3. So if you see something you're looking for in the video, make sure you reference that A number or B number for what you're looking for. So if you're looking for like B17, you know, it'll be the 17th item in sub-menu B for metering and exposure. So for focus points used, I make sure it's all focus points. That way, if you're trying to move the focus point of something on a branch, you still have the option to select it and not have it skip by. This AF activation is where you would select if you wanted to use back button focusing with the AF on button. I don't use it. I can never get used to it. It just screws me over, so I don't mess with it. Then A8 is limit AF area mode selection. So whenever you cycle through your different autofocus types, you don't have to go through all like 15 options. You can just dumb it down to only the couple you know you're always going to use. So I always have pinpoint, dynamic area, small and medium with 3D tracking and auto area. Whenever you are in face detect, it'll automatically switch to matrix metering so that you don't accidentally expose for just your face instead of the whole scene, which does not make it look very good if you only expose for your face and not the scene. At D1, you can change what continuous low shooting speed is. I set it to 3 because that's pretty easy to manage if you just want to shoot single or a little bit of a burst. Then we have pre-release capture options, and this is only available when you're shooting in JPEG. Never leave your shutter type in automatic. Make sure it's in mechanical so that the camera doesn't make that decision by itself.
Always turn on extended shutter speeds so that you don't need a intervalometer to take long exposure landscape photos, so that you can do it in camera up to 15 minutes. And this is a very important big one. Make sure you select for view mode at D10 show effects of settings, so whenever you look through the viewfinder you can see how the exposure is going to look for the image in the viewfinder. D16 is grid type, so you can see your rule of thirds or other versions of it to help you with your framing. And then we have D17 for virtual horizon type. Personally, I like type B. And then D19, you can customize how you want your monitor to look with different settings. And this is how I have mine set up, but you can add different displays and options and kind of go a little hog wild on how it looks and how it's set up. And then also the next one, D20, is the same thing. You can customize how the viewfinder looks, your EVF. Again, I do not mess with flash, so none of that auto ISO with flash or bracketing matters. Now here we have F1 for customizing the eye menu, and you can adjust everything you want in the eye menu. For this eye menu, this is for the photo mode. F2 is custom controls, like I had programmed in the eye menu originally, so you don't have to go into this menu to find it. And one of my biggest tips I can tell you is change the video record button to AF plus right here. That way, whenever you press down on the record button when you're shooting photos, you can use that in one of the wheels on the back of the camera to cycle through autofocus continuous, single, manual, or your different autofocus continuous types like 3D tracking or pinpoint or auto area. This makes it so much smoother to switch mid-shoot instead of trying to fumble for like a function button or something else, or go into the menus. And then I also suggest, if you have the ability to program the lens function button, LFN2, so that you can change that to a very specific autofocus type. I always change it to single point. That way you can change the single point by pressing the button on the lens, and then you can manually focus. And then you can use that to peer through brush or sticks and things to see your target subject without the camera like freaking out on the things around it. Now we're going to go down to G1. This is the video portion of customization. Now G1 is going to be customizing the eye menu for your video function. So if you flip the switch to switch to video, that's the eye menu you're going to be seeing. Then with G5 for AF speed, I kind of turned it up a little bit to +2, and I select always, so that it's always autofocusing at that speed, even if you're not pressing record, because it's very frustrating that whenever you go to press record and the camera is not locked onto the fast moving subject. Then we have G6 AF tracking sensitivity. I turned that down to 3, so it's a little more sensitive and aggressive in video for subject tracking. And I turn on extended shutter speeds. That way, when you're doing video, if you want to do a shutter speed slower than your frame rate, you have the ability to do that. So if you're shooting 24p, you can shoot a frame of like 15. Make sure your view assists are on. You want to make sure you do not forget about those. And then the brightness information, you can change it to waveform, medium, or large. I would just go with the medium one. And as in photo mode, you can go through and do custom settings for your EVF and back screen display. Always be sure you have the red record frame indicator on, so you remember that the camera is recording.
So as you can see, it's absolutely dumping snow on me right now. And we're going to hurry this up and get out there to do some photo video clips with the 180 to 600 and other lenses. So until next time, while I'm out there shooting, I wish you the best of luck. I'll see you.
So Snapbridge with the Z50II. While the camera is connected to your smart device over Snapbridge, it will relay your GPS data, so it will tag geolocation, like GPS, in your photos and your EXIF data, so you can see locations in Lightroom. So to do that, you need to go to the network menu and go to connect to smart device and select the Wi-Fi and establish Wi-Fi connection. And that will turn on the Wi-Fi in the camera. Then you need to go to your smart device, open Snapbridge, and it will ask you to update the app if there's any updates for it. And always get the updates. Personally, Snapbridge isn't that reliable, so I always give it a thumbs down because I swear it always disconnects whenever it's not supposed to. So go to download pictures, and it will give you the prompt on what to do to connect to your camera. Open your device settings and go into your Wi-Fi options on your device. Select the camera, it will connect. Sometimes it'll say connection, hit connect, and sometimes it will say connection failed, and just tap on the camera again and it will connect. Then you can go into your files and download all the different options as you want for RAW, JPEG, HEIF, or video files, and then just select the files that you are looking for. You can also preview them in the app as well. And then whenever you're ready, just hit the download button at the bottom of the app screen, and you can do original format or 8 megapixel or 2 megapixel. So to download photos, roughly takes 7 seconds per RAW file to transfer to your device. And then whenever it comes to transferring video, a 14-second video clip of 4K 30 10-bit H.265, it took about almost 2 minutes to transfer. So not the most efficient way to transfer video files. So when it comes to the Nikon Imaging Cloud for uploading directly from the camera, you have a third tab in the Snapbridge app, and you want to hit the Get Start button to download the Nikon app for imaging. So make sure you click Sign Up, then it'll boot you to your web browser. And then you can go here and just create a Nikon ID and just follow the prompts all the way through with using an email address that you prefer, or you could also sign in using Gmail. And then you have to scroll through the Nikon agreement and you have to go all the way to the bottom and make sure you click Accept. And once you do that, it will send you a verification code in your email, and then you can just put a nickname on your account, whatever your preference is. The rest of it is not required. And then you can go back to the Snapbridge app and click Log In to Nikon Cloud and log in with the information that you just created. Once you are logged in, you need to install the Nikon Image Space app. So you just click that in the top center of the app screen and open your app store. Then just click install on that, and then once that is ready, just make sure you open it from there, and then it will preview photos you have on your device as the background. And then there you go, you're logged in to the app, and it will show you local photos on the device you're using and a total uploaded to the cloud. To upload images to the cloud from your device, you have to go to Upload from the top right, ellipse, and then select the photos you want and just click Upload again in the top right. And then you can create a new album, call it whatever you want, and click Upload. Once you have your camera connected to the Nikon Imaging Cloud, which I recommend following Nikon's actual step-by-step video on that, you can go on there and you can run through all the different Nikon creators, people that have accounts that uploaded their recipes for different, looks to photos and video. And once you find one you like, you can select it on their account and click Add to Saved Recipes. Once you have a couple that you really like saved to your recipes, you can go to your saved recipes and select them and do the batch operation. And whenever you hit the drop down, you can select to register it to your camera on the account. And then as soon as your camera connects to Wi-Fi the next time, you will be able to update your picture controls that will automatically download and reflect that in the menus. So to do that, once you have selected them, go to picture control in the camera when you're connected to the Wi-Fi, scroll all the way down, and you go to Cloud Picture Control Files, hit the plus magnifying glass icon, and we'll download them from the network, and then you'll have everything that you selected on the website. So if you press the Custom Controls button on top of the Z52, you will have your options to pick right there. So if you found this little tutorial on Snapbridge useful, please hit that like and subscribe. Coming up, we're going to have a dedicated video on the photo aspects of the camera. So until next time, best of luck. I'll see you out there. And we're talking about the battery life in video and the heating of the camera. Now, I do have a small rig cage on here, and it's an interesting cage to say the least. Um, I don't really think this is going to have an effect on the battery life or the heat of the camera, especially for like heat dissipation and stuff. But I want to mention it that it's on there. It has this little thumb thing that you can like flip out of the way so you can get to the battery door and the SD card. And you kind of flip it back down. And then on the ends, on the sides of the camera, it kind of has these like weird little locks that like slide down onto like the the rings for like your camera strap would go on. And then it has a regular mount of screw on the bottom. So for these tests, I had the back screen was on the entire time. I had it flipped like this. It was closed. So that way, it's more realistic to how you're going to be shooting, because most people are going to have the screen on at all times, so it's going to suck down the juice of the battery. So you're probably going to have it like this most times, but I had it like this so that it would hold some of the heat against the back of the camera, and it may not breathe as well. So for the atmospheric conditions for the room that I tested this in, I have my notes. It was at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 22 C, and a relative humidity of 48%. Now, I did 3 tests on this. I did 4K 24, 4K 30, 4K 60, and all of these were in a 10-bit 422 N-Log internal, and we'll just go through how long it lasted for each one of those. And to keep it fair between each testing, once the camera got hot, I did let it cool down for an hour, and then I charged it. We did the next test after that. For the 4K 24 10-bit N-Log test with a tally light, which you can see right here, which is actually super cool. I do kind of wish the Z9 had that. Whenever your battery gets low, like if you look on the back, you have your bars of your battery. It'll start double flashing in the front whenever your battery is getting pretty low. That way, whenever you're in the front talking, vlogging, making video, it'll start flashing at you, and you can have a visual on your battery's getting low. So that's kind of cool. For basically every one of these 3 tests that I did for 4K, it started blinking at like 32-minute mark. But I mean, it's kind of misleading. So like the back battery icon on the back of the camera would show a red bar blinking that it was low battery, but that was always at the 30-ish minute mark, as I had said. Now for the 4K 24, we got 1 hour and 23 minutes and 56 seconds out of one battery, which is pretty crazy for like look at this thing. This is a pretty tiny battery. Like look at this thing. I feel like this is like a battery that used to be in like a house phone like 20 years ago. That's how small this thing is. For the 4K 30 test, we got 1 hour, 22 minutes even. And then for the 4K 60, we got 1 hour and 3 minutes and 58 seconds. Now, for some reason, the 4K 60 used more juice, and the 4K 60 is not a full sensor readout. It's a 1.5 crop on top of the crop you're already using. And we'll just put a quick little graph up there of all those times so you can easily see. Now, I did not do a 1080p video to see how long that would last. I feel like most people aren't going to do 1080p, and I'm kind of just assuming that if you're getting an hour and a half out of 4K 24, 1080p you're probably going a little bit longer or the same. And an hour and a half straight on battery, that's plenty for most people. And if you need to do more than that, you can just do USB-C power from the wall, or a battery bank, or like a DTAP battery. So it's not that limiting as one would think. So let's get to the things people care about, is the heat management, heat dissipation, because a lot of cameras, don't want to point fingers, but a lot of Sonys have heat problems to where they get really hot, and they'll have warnings on the back of the camera, and they'll just shut down. Now, I didn't test this in a very, hot environment. It was basically a little bit above room temperature. But over an hour and a half, this is what I found out. After about 15 minutes, on the back of the camera under the hinge, like right in this area, it got warm to the touch. You could just tell it was working. And then by about 50-minute mark, the whole backside of this camera was pretty warm. Like, it wasn't going to hurt you or anything like that, but you could definitely tell it was starting to sweat. And the OK button, for some reason, it started getting really, really warm. It wasn't like uncomfortable to hold or anything. It's just, you would feel it. And then another thing that I thought was kind of strange is, like, whenever I was doing the 4K 30 test, it would record for an hour and 15 straight. Okay. And then it just like randomly stopped recording. No message came up on the screen or anything. And I thought maybe the battery was dead, so I checked the battery. It was blinking red. So I was like, okay, we'll just try to record some more. I got about 7-ish minutes left recording after that point, and then it definitely died. And it said that it was not going to be able to continue from a dead battery. So whenever I took the battery out, and I thought to myself, I wonder what the battery felt like after an hour and a half-ish of recording straight. The battery was definitely warm to the touch. It wasn't like uncomfortable, but it was, it felt like really hot shower water, that kind of temperature. And then I thought to myself, I wonder what the SD card feels like. So I took the SD card out, and I am using Kingston 128GB V90 SD card with all those extra fancy, chips on the back. And the card itself was pretty hot. It wasn't going to like burn your fingers or anything, but those contacts on there, I wasn't paying attention, and I put my fingers right on the contacts. That was hot. That could potentially burn somebody. But I mean, it cooled down pretty quick, so not something I'm super worried about. And most people probably are going to take it out and grab it with their fingers. And at the end of the day, at the highest record settings are like 4K 60, 4K 30, N-Log internal. And if you have to remember, is 4K 30 and less is sampled from 6K from inside the camera. So you get a sharper image. And over this entire testing of the heat management stuff, not once did it overheat, not once did you get hot card warning, hot battery warning, hot camera warning, nothing. It just kept shooting like nothing was happening. So that was super cool. And one of the negatives about the battery for me is like on like the Z6, Z8, Z9, you go into your menus, you can go to the battery and you can see a percentage of like what the battery percent is at and like how many shots you've taken. On the Z52, you don't get any of that. You literally just get a picture with 3 bars on it, and you just have to hope that each one of those bars is like, 33%. Because sometimes you'll be like, oh, it's only two bars are there, I'm good. And you'll start taking a video, and it'll show red bar flashing. Then you turn it back to photo mode, and then it'll show like 1 or 2 bars on the battery meter again. So I don't really understand what the deal is with that. And if you've found this video useful, entertaining, just something to throw in the background, something to listen to, please hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and I wish you the best of luck. I'll see you out there. So the Z52, why is it better than the first generation? So we're just going to go over the main points why this is a superior camera to the first generation, besides shooting video with this a lot, which is the main reason why I got it. I put the small rig cage on there, and it helps with my pinky to have a spot for that to go. So if you have big hands, your pinky's probably not going to fit on it, just like the first generation. Still has the same kind of body shape. It's a little bit different, it's a little bit bigger grip, a little deeper for bigger hands. So the sensor is still the same 20.9, there is no IBIS. The ISO is still the same 100 to 51,000, and whenever it comes to the shutter speed, the mechanical shutter is 1/4000th of a second. So if you are shooting, a fast aperture lens outside, you might not be able to do that without stopping down a little bit. So if you have like a 1.2 or an f2 lens and you're outside, 1/4000 might not be enough in a sunny day. So the rest of this are things it's going to be better at or improved. So first things first, same kit lens, same 16 to 50, but the screen now flips out. So now you can see what you're doing, which is super nice. Really appreciate that. And also you can flip it back and then fold it flat to protect the screen. So that's pretty cool too. So if you just want to look through the viewfinder and not constantly chimp or look at the back screen, it kind of helps with that. So we're going to work our way around this so we can see the differences. So real quick, as you can see from that flipping around, there's no more touch buttons on the touch screen on the side, on the right side of the screen. I really hated those. Pain to use. That's all I can say on that. And they added a little bit different button layout on the back, which is much appreciated. And then on the side of the camera, now we have a mic in and a headphone port. We didn't have a headphone port before, so that's pretty cool. And now we have a USB-C port on the side for charging, so you can use the camera on AC power while you're shooting if you wanted to, or a really big, like V-mount, gold mount battery. And it does have the really tiny HDMI on there too, so not a big fan of that. Super flimsy, but for a $900 camera, it is what it is. Inside the body, on the bottom, same layout as the first generation. You have the battery in the SD card, but this time the SD card slot is now UHS 2, which is awesome. Now it can shoot forever, and you don't have to worry about your buffer. So I really like that, and just fire away forever. Up to 200 frames, and it shoots 11 frames per second. And also on top of the camera, up here where you record your ISO button and exposure compensation, there is a new button for picture profiles. So you can open that up, hold the button, and select through all these different picture profiles. It's kind of like Nikon's version of like film simulations, I guess, something like that. It's not really something that I'm probably going to use a whole lot, but you can use it in photo or video. So for the viewfinder, we have a nice upgrade. It's still the same 2.36 dot EVF, still the same 60 Hertz, not high refresh rate, it's not blackout free, it's not a stack sensor, but it is now a 1000 nit viewfinder. So people like me that have transition lenses, you go outside, it's really bright out, lenses get dark, you can still see this really good. And now we have Xpeed 7 in here, just like the Z6 III, ZF, Z8, Z9, all those. So now we have access to 3D tracking, and its subject detection has been greatly improved. So now we have bird, plane, and animal, and then it can automatically select in between all those automatically by itself if you just let it do it on auto. And a little upgrade if you do landscape is you can do more than just 30 seconds. You don't have to use bulb mode anymore for long exposures. You can do up to 900 seconds on this, just like the Z6II, Z7II, and newer. Another cool aspect, if you're into anything fast moving, you can do pre-capture on this up to 1 second, and it's only in JPEG, so you have to shoot in JPEG, not RAW, and pre-capture is only in JPEG, but it can do it up to 30 frames per second, so you get 30 frames prior to pressing the shutter button. So that can be pretty useful for certain situations. So talking about the pre-capture and the JPEG shooting, you can shoot up to 30 frames per second in the full resolution in JPEG, electronic mode shooting only. So if you shoot that with pre-capture on, you're gaining 1 second of photos for that, and I was able to get 5 seconds of continuous 30 frames per second JPEG with the V90 card that I'm using in this camera. And that card is a Kingston 128 V90. So, and obviously you can shoot in silent, and for myself personally, I programmed, let me see which one it is, I can't ever remember. I programmed FN1 right here, kind of hard to see. Programmed FN1 to switch between mechanical and silent. So you can shoot mechanical and then switch to silent, and you don't hear anything. But it has a sensor readout of a 24.6 milliseconds. So it's like a quarter second readout speed. So really not that fast if a sensor readout. But if a subject is stationary, not moving, like you're not shooting sports, or if
you're in a blind and there's a deer or something like that, silent shooting would work really good for something like that, because it's not moving or getting anything warped, so that's kind of cool. And if you pair it with a 180 to 600, and it focuses super quiet, so it's a really good thing to use with that. So we're going to jump into the video aspects of the upgrade from Generation 1 to the Generation 2 here. So you have the toggle switch on top, but with the cage, it's kind of a pain to get to. So you can push it from the front to get to video, push it from the back, get the photo, but it's not the easiest thing to do with this bar thing in the way, so just something to think about. But that's how you switch to photo video. And then whenever you switch to video and you press the record button, you get a really cool red tally light here in the front. And whenever the battery starts dying, it'll start blinking at you. So when you're in front of the camera, it'll at least give you a cue that, hey, the battery's getting low. And I personally kind of wish that that was like on the Z9 that I'm filming on right now. So another cool thing about it is this camera now shoots log and log. So you can use the Nikon red LUTs on it whenever you're editing, especially in like DaVinci Resolve Studio, which is what I use. And all the video in this is 265, is going to be 10-bit, even if you're shooting in log, so that's pretty cool. And it's going to be downsampled to 4K. And another nice thing about this is you can shoot for more than 29 minutes and 59 seconds. You can shoot video until the battery's dead, so you can thank Europe for that one. And the highest resolution you can shoot at is 4K 60 with a 1.5 crop on that, so it gets kind of intense. So make sure you have at least enough working distance to do that, because you're already on a crop sensor. But you can also do 1080 120p on this, and it's not going to be the sharpest 1080 ever, but it still gives you the option to get some, B-roll or something if you really need that, and this is the only camera you got. And the battery that comes with this is the ENEL25A battery, and Nikon claims it is about 10% higher capacity. So if you still have the first generation ENEL25 laying around, keep it, use it. 10% isn't going to be a crazy amount you're going to gain, so make sure you save batteries and reuse them if you have them. And I was trying to find out if this camera was actually weather sealed. So if you look on B&H and like Autorama, Nikon's website, I didn't really see anything specifically saying that it was weather sealed. And I know some other cameras it will, specifically say that, like for the Z9, it will say it's weather sealed. So I contacted Nikon through NPS to verify if it was weather sealed or not. So I'm going to read the email that Nikon sent me from my NPS request. The Z50II seals will help protect the camera from a little light rain or snow where it is not soaked or saturated and easy to wipe dry. The camera is water resistant, not waterproof, and definitely not able to be submerged. I feel like that's kind of a given. If you believe your camera will be exposed to heavy dust, rain, or vibration shock, I recommend considering a third-party housing unit to guard against the elements. Others have used plastic bags and rubber bands in a pinch, or tuck it in your coat until you will shoot and then wipe it off when it gets wet. I have no test data to offer regarding Z50 exposure to rain, but it's in line with what we can be expected of a camera in its class. So, basically they're saying it is weather sealed, but of its class, I'm not really sure what they're trying to say with that. I mean, it's a $900, basically an entry camera. So I'm sure it's not sealed to like a Z8 standard, but they said it will be fine with a little bit of fog, mist, dust, that kind of thing. So, and one extra thing for video that I am pretty excited to use, because I will be using this camera for a lot of talking head like this, or talking about camera reviews or reviewing specific things, is it has something called Product Showcase. The idea is if you're showing something in your hands, you go like this to show it towards the camera will focus on whatever's in your hand, and you don't have to block your face with it and hope that eventually it will lock on to the camera like that. And then I have to remove it from in front of my face and then a Z9 will focus back on my face. But this will not. It'll just automatically switch back and forth, and it would be super cool to have that on the higher end bodies. And probably one of the biggest cons on this camera body that I can think of off the top of my head is simply that there is no lock for this top dial. Now, I've been shooting with this for about 2 months, and I'll be carrying it on like the 180 to 600 or anything else really, or if it's just in my camera bag. Like, it's super easy to just accidentally bump this and like rotate it to a different setting. Like, I'll be shooting and like the numbers are jumping all over the place, exposure's going crazy. I'm like, what is going on? And I look, oh yeah, the camera's on auto. And one more cool thing that they added to this that was not on the Z51 is you have the ability to put voice memos on your photos or files. So you can do that just like on the higher end cameras. Now, I do not have a Z51 at my disposal, but I hope here soon I will have one so I can do a comparison between the 1 and 2 to see if the Xpeed 7 processor helps with the blackout at highest frames per second, to see if there's a big difference in that. So if you found this video interesting or useful to tell the difference between the first gen and second gen Z50, if the upgrade is worth for you if you have the first generation, or if you're looking to buy the Z52. I will have a whole bunch of these videos in a series, and eventually I will have one big long video stitched together with everything in one shot, so you don't have to skip around to different clips and videos to see everything. So until next time, happy shooting. I'll see you out there. So I have been testing the Z52 over a couple months, and we're just going to talk about the photo and video aspect of it right now, and we'll have some examples on the screen as well. Now, if you're coming from like a DSLR to a Z52 and you've never experienced mirrorless, I will say with this camera there is a slight delay in the viewfinder. Whenever you take pictures, just like you do with a DSLR, it is not a live feed of viewfinder, it is not a stacked sensor like a Z9. Now you can shoot 5 frames per second in continuous low.
Future me here, continuous high is 5.5 frames per second about, and silent mode is 6.7. Continuous high extended is 11 frames per second mechanical, and about 9 frames per second with silent mode on. Okay, with that fixed, back to the video.
And in that mode, the viewfinder doesn't have a blackout. It has a little bit of like a stutter to it. It's not that detrimental now for tracking moving objects in the sky. It's not as bad as the first generation Z50. And whenever I record the EVF, when I'm shooting continuous low and high, it doesn't show the actual blackout from the shutter for some reason. But every time you see a stutter and it like shows another picture, that's the blackout. So the recorded EVF in continuous low and high doesn't look exactly how it appears. And then when it comes to video, you have 4K 30, and that is sampled inside from 5.3K 30. So if you want the sharpest video out of this, you're going to want to shoot 4K 30 frames or 24, and you're going to want to shoot an N-Log. An N-Log is a really nice flat profile that you can grade with, and you can slap on a whole bunch of different LUTs and things you're choosing. You can use a Nikon LUTs or the nice new Nikon Red LUTs, which look really nice as a base for you to start grading it. So it's pretty easy to match the Z52 with the Z9 using a log profile, and you can use LUTs to match both. Slow motion, you can shoot 1080p 120, which when you view on YouTube, it's actually not going to be as bad as you think it would be compared to like 4K 120 from like a Z8, Z9 or whatnot. And there is no crop on that, but there is no crop option to use either. So like on the Z9, you can shoot 4K 120 and there's no crop, or in crop mode, which is a 2.3x, which is very useful for wildlife, especially in a kayak. But the Z52 does not have that ability, so you're kind of stuck with whatever lens you happen to be putting on there. You are already on a 1.5x crop, so it's kind of nice. So like your 600 turns into a 900, and plus you can shoot 1080 120 on it. So let's talk about the rolling shutter on this camera. If you are shooting something high pace, high action, like birds in flight or things like that, definitely use the mechanical shutter. Electronic shutter scans at about 24.8 or 25 milliseconds, around there, which isn't the worst for video, but for photo, you're gonna struggle to have like bent wings and a whole bunch of other things going on. Now, I shot a wind turbine that measures, wind speed in our garden, and just to give you an example of mechanical versus electronic, you can definitely see that electronic scans slow enough to where things start warping and bending. So if you're gonna shoot like aviation, props, or cars racing, definitely use the mechanical shutter for photo. When it comes to video, you can't really get around that. So your best bet with that is just make do with what you got or buy a better camera. So let's talk about autofocus, okay? For talking head like this, autofocus works awesome. It is a lot more reliable and trustworthy than the ZFC or the Z50 or the Z30. They all use the same Expeed 6. The Z30, the ZFC, the Z50, Z52, all four cameras. They use the same D500 sensor, so it is not going to get you the same dynamic range as, say, a Z7. Maybe not even a Z8 or Z9, even if they're electronic only. But it is still a very reliable sensor, and I have used the D500 for years, and I got really good pictures with it, and the landscapes and stuff I got out of it, the sensor was not going to hold me back. There's many ways around it. You can do HDR stacking, you can stitch, you can do all kinds of stuff when you go to edit. So don't think this sensor is going to hold you back in capturing anything beautiful. So when it comes to autofocus tracking with moving objects, not just talking head, one of the cool things about it is in video, it now has this thing called a product showcase. So basically you just hold the thing up and you hold it in front of you like this, and it'll focus on whatever's closest. You put it back down, transfers back to your face. It works really good. I did a video using it, talking about photo prints and things. And it actually was very quick and subtle going back and forth. It wasn't focus wrecking, it wasn't doing anything crazy like that. So when it comes to photo and video, there's a switch on top, switch back and forth. This saves the banks differently. So whatever settings you had in photo is going to be different than what you had in video, which is very helpful. So if you're going to switch between things, you don't have to worry about resetting your settings for exposure between them. So if you're in a kayak and you're taking pictures, okay, and then you hit the little switch to switch to video, your video settings will be where you left them off, so you can program them both ahead of time and switch between them pretty easily. And the autofocus continuous tracking for both of those is basically the same options. You get people, animals, birds, planes, trains, everything in between. You can put it on automatic, so it switches between all the autofocus settings. Some of the other cameras may not be able to do that in this price range. And I really like that because you can just hand the camera to somebody and say, hey, take pictures of this thing for me, and the camera will just know what you need to focus on, which is super nice. So if you have a second shooter, it makes that life a little bit easier, and it makes a really good backup second shooter camera. And for photo, you can shoot 200 frames in a continuous burst, just like a D500. So that's very nice. You don't have to worry about, running out of buffer space or anything like that, especially with a V90 card. And then with birds, it's something I shoot a lot of. It walks right onto their head. You don't have to worry about anything. It doesn't really confuse them too much with anything brown around them, if the bird's brown. But if it does, you can program the function button on the 180 to 600, and I'm sure other lenses too. You can switch to single point, pinpoint that bird through the brush, let go of it, it'll switch back to whatever tracking you use, and it will walk onto that bird in the brush. And for planes and cars and things, I've tested it out. The autofocus tracking feels very similar to the Z9, but you're not going to get the electronic shutter readout speed, and you're not going to get 45 megapixels and a bunch of other obvious caveats. I just wish it had a vertical grip, because I really like the big body cameras, and I wish I had the option to do that. With the Z52, we also have the ability to have microphone in and headphone jack in, which is really cool. But one of the negatives is that each HDMI port is itty bitty tiny. It's like the size of a Pez, so it's very fragile. Be careful. I have broke one before in the ZFC. I broke the cable, the camera was fine. With us talking about all the autofocus, video, and photo, if you found that interesting, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and best of luck. I'll see you out there shooting. Here at Goddard State Park in Lake Wilhelm, and we're taking the Z52 out with the 180 to 600. And we're going to do some waterfowl, ducks, eagles kind of photos, and we're going to see how the battery life does and how the 3D tracking works for birds in flight along water, around backgrounds, blue skies, that sort of thing. And we're going to dub in some clips from the viewfinder so you can see the EVF working, some videos, final edited photos, those sorts of things. And we will be joined by the channel's good friend, Tiana Johnson. Highly recommend you check out her social media pages. We'll put a little pop-up here so you can follow her, and links down below. Definitely worth following because she has a wealth of information if it comes to wildlife, nature, and conservation. So there's a northern section we're going to do and a southern section we're going to do of Lake Wilhelm. Try to get as much distance on the water as we can out of the trolling motor and battery. Hopefully 5-6 miles we'll be able to cover, and we'll be able to see what we find out there. And at the end of the video, we'll put a scrolling list of the total bird count we came across. So let's jump into the boat and see how well this thing does.
I've always dirtied everything that I found. This ain't no different, so look at you now. And baby, cut yourself loose. Save all the things that I said that night. Playing it cool, but I never got it right. Baby, cut yourself loose. I was mesmerized by your eyes. You keep me up every night. You keep me up every night. There ain't no satisfaction for me now. There ain't no satisfaction for me now. There ain't no satisfaction for me now. Now that you're gone, now that you're gone, now that you're gone. Everything that I am, caught in the pond, no backup plan. So baby, cut yourself loose. Cause a little trouble, don't shed a tear. Keep that sunny smile from ear to ear. And baby, cut yourself loose. I was mesmerized by your eyes. Keep me up every night. Keep me up every night. There ain't no satisfaction for me now. There ain't no satisfaction for me now. There ain't no satisfaction for me now. Now that you're gone.
got a female painted turtle. They are native to Pennsylvania. They look very similar to the invasive red-eared slider. The red-eared slider is native to the U.S., but it is not native to the northeastern U.S. This is the carapace, the top part of the turtle. This is the plastron. Each of these little sections on the top and the bottom are called a scute. This is a female because it's nice and flat. If it was a male, it would have a concavity right about here, and that's an adaptation for mating so that the male can fit better on top of the female. But you can tell it's a painted turtle because of the way it is. It has some reddish coloration right here. Does not have that red teardrop like the red-eared slider. And on the shell, the scutes are delineated with a lighter marking and then reddish coloration also on the shell.
So here at the end, we're going to talk about the camera battery life. Now the battery life, I was expecting to get about 700-800 shots on a charge. It's similar to how I got on the ZFC a few years ago. But at the end of the day, I shot 1,701 photos on one battery. And the battery gauge in the camera still showed about 1 to 2 bars left. I know it's not a very accurate measurement, but getting 1,700 photos on this small EN-EL25 battery is pretty amazing. And we were out shooting for about 4 hours. And with all the examples of the autofocus working in auto area in 3D tracking, I think it's easy to say that this Z50II has the chops to be considered maybe the next D500. As a focus assist option, I programmed the LN function on the lens to be single point. So if it was a brown object on a brown background, you could press the button and it would help the camera concentrate one spot, and then once you would focus that way, you would let go of the button and it would automatically switch back to 3D or auto area and find the subject pretty quickly. For this camera being $900 at launch, it definitely has at least 70% of the autofocus speed that you'd expect from like a Z8 or Z9 that I usually shoot with. The autofocus system does give you an air of confidence that's very enjoyable to use. And at the end of the video here, we'll have a scroll of all the different species and bird count that we came across. So until next time, happy shooting. I'll see you out there. Best of luck.